It's time for Recipe of the Day. Here I am today with barely a recipe. This is just how to bake chicken thighs. It's very simple, but it's a very popular recipe on my site, The Cookville. It gets a lot of Google searches and then a lot of traffic comes to it. So that tells me that people are searching for it and might be interested in what I have to say about baking chicken thighs. So I love chicken thighs. I really, really do. They are so juicy and tender and versatile. I actually find them better than chicken breasts in terms of versatility, just because they are so juicy. You can get away with overcooking them in a way that you can't with chicken breasts. They're good pan fried, baked. They're good in stews. They can hold up in soup really well. So I love chicken thighs. And ever since they've started doing them boneless, skinless at the grocery store, I don't remember when that happened, but I remember when they didn't exist and I was taking the skin off myself all the time. So 10 years ago, ever since then, they have been one of my favorite go-tos at the grocery store. So chicken thighs are going to make their way to you in one of two ways. The boneless, skinless chicken thighs, I mean. Either they're frozen, flash frozen, in which case they tend to have unrolled them into almost flat fillets is what I would say they are most like. That is one way you get them. The other way you get them often at the grocery store is when they're on that little bit of styrofoam and then they're kind of rolled into bundles. So what's happening here is that they have removed the bone from the chicken thigh and then wrapped it back up around where that bone was. That's the one way. The other way, of course, they have just left them open. Now, when it comes to cooking them, whether they are flat or rolled up just matters in terms of timing and in terms of surface area. So if I want some really, really crispy bits of chicken thigh, I will often unroll them and do them flat on a pan in a skillet or in the oven, maybe even under the broiler, and then you just get a lot of that surface area for browning. Whereas if I want nice juicy chicken thighs, then I will leave them rolled up, or I will roll them up if they weren't already into those little bundles. They don't have as much little bits that are then going to get brown, but the inside is going to be super juicy. See what I mean? Now, however they are, you might want to know if you should marinate them or brine them. My answer is sort of no. For brining, I love brining, but I don't tend to brine things that don't need it because it's an extra step. And with the chicken thighs, they are so juicy and tender without doing anything to them. Why bother? That is my question there. As to the marinade, if you just want to be adding some extra flavor, I am going to link to one of my favorite marinades. It has some balsamic vinegar, soy sauce, and sesame oil. So it has some really nice, rich flavor there, and the salt from the soy sauce. It's a really nice marinade. But I don't even feel like chicken thighs need to be marinated. They get a little bit of the flavor, but if anything, it makes them a little bit wetter, and then they don't brown up as nice. And really, I love any little bits of crispy, brown, dark chicken meat that I can get. Okay, so we have probably not marinated, definitely not brined chicken thighs, and I usually preheat the oven to a higher 400 degrees Fahrenheit or even 450 degrees Fahrenheit when I'm cooking chicken thighs, because I told you I want that nice browning, right? And then you lightly grease a baking sheet with some olive oil or whatever cooking oil you like, or you can use a cooking spray, and then you put your chicken thighs on there and then season them on both sides with salt, pepper, and garlic powder. 1 teaspoon of salt for 6 boneless, skinless chicken thighs, half teaspoon of black pepper, half teaspoon of garlic powder. Sprinkle them all over. You sprayed that pan or you oiled that pan, and now you're kind of rolling the chicken over in that, adding the salt, pepper, and garlic powder. You might want to put a little bit more oil if you sort of used it all up and there's none left on the pan at that point. But you do want the pan to have a little bit of oil and the chicken thighs themselves to have a little bit. So you could add more if you need to. And then you're baking those until they reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit on an instant read thermometer or one of those probe thermometers I talk about so you can see the reading on the outside. But it's just until they're not pink inside anymore. So if you want to, you can just cut into one of the thicker ones and make sure. It's going to be 18 to 20 minutes if you unroll those chicken thighs and if you're cooking them at 400, or it's going to be 22 to 25 minutes if they're more rolled up into those bundles. And that is it. You don't really have to let them rest. I find that just the time that it takes to get them from the pan onto your dinner plates and then to the table, that is enough time for them to kind of settle down and be ready for you to cut right in. And then I guess just before I wrap up, I'm going to say that this is not what I would do if I have the skin on chicken thighs. Those I would probably pan fry first, almost always skin side down until that skin is nice and brown and crispy, and then flip them over and finish them in the oven. And I actually have a recipe for that on Cook the Story. I will link to that here, and I promise to tell you about it probably after Thanksgiving. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there, or find it in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. And hey, just a quick note. I'm on a recording hiatus right now, so for the next little while, I'm replaying episodes from the archives, including this one. If you heard me mention a holiday, a season, or something going on in my life that seemed a bit off, that's why. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're enjoying these older episodes. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, cookfor2.us, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.